afternoon and welcome to the Pittsburgh Current podcast. I am Pittsburgh Current editor and publisher Charlie Deach. The new digital edition of the Pittsburgh Current will be in your inboxes tomorrow, where we will continue our What's at Stake essay series leading up to the November 3rd general election. I'm pretty excited for today's show. Our guest today is an actor, writer, musician, and former attendee of Carnegie Mellon University. Yes. You know him from films like This is Spinal Tap, Clue, A Mighty Wind, and in my opinion, one of the funniest films of the past 20 years, the Christopher Guest mockumentary, Best in Show. You also know him from shows like Better Call Saul, Grace and Frankie, and if you're my age, you know him from Laverne and Shirley. So I want to welcome to the Pittsburgh Current podcast, Michael McKean. Michael, welcome.
Thank you, Charlie. Nice to be here.
Thank you. So these kinds of fundraisers actually started within the last month or so. Rob Reiner and the cast of his film, The Princess Bride, did a table read and raised about $4.2 million for Wisconsin Democrats. But with the nature of your movie, you weren't able just to do a table read, so you had to do something different.
We can't even imagine what that really would have been, without the capabilities to really, to do a whole act, a whole band. So we decided to show clips from the film, hopefully everybody's favorite. There's a lot of them, and talk a little bit about each clip, talk about the people in it, those who are still with us, those who ain't. Right. Kind of give us a chance to talk about the film from the inside, as the people who made the film. Rob, the director, all four of us, the creators of pretty much, everything you see there. Yeah. Aside from the dialogue that was provided by some amazing people. Just Howard Hessman, for example. I always take him for an example because his character didn't even exist 24 hours before we shot it.
Wow. We
had a character who was this rock and roller that we meet in the hotel lobby, and he came in for a wardrobe fitting, and we realized the guy looked great, but he couldn't talk. I mean, he couldn't improvise, let's put it that way. So Rob said, why don't we give him a manager? Let's call Howard. Howard's one of the greatest improvisers of all time. He was with the committee, amazing bunch from Northern California. And so he came in and he just nailed it, just kind of gave us 3 or 4 amazing lines that, and a real character. So that was the kind of thing that we really loved, but it's also the kind of thing that if you read that, it's not the same thing.
Right.
It's happening at the time is how we did it. So it's nice to have a chance to say, that guy was good. Here's why. He knows his onions. He's not a guy who thinks that improv is running up on stage with a punchline.
Right.
That it's about really existing in the moment and all that stuff that sounds like a cliche now, but it's all definitely true. So that seemed like a good idea to us, and that's what we're doing.
What is it that makes someone? Because another person that we lost him recently, Fred Willard, was just a great improviser. And I don't know how much of like Mighty Wind, for example, was improvised, but I was watching his scenes from Mighty Wind recently, and Fred is just could take anything and just he could be talking absolute gibberish and you're believing exactly what he's telling you.
Because he believes it.
Yeah.
Because he believes it. It's not gibberish to that character.
Yeah.
That character is telling you the unalloyed truth about everything. And there's a genius. There was a genius to Fred's idiocy.
Yeah.
I've known Fred. I knew Fred since 1975.
Wow.
Been making me laugh that long. And losing Fred was a terrible time in the midst of a terrible time. And anyway, a remarkable guy. Yeah. Paul Benedict is another one who's the hotel clerk, the front desk clerk.
Right.
Who just came in and he just lived in the moment. And there were a couple of scenes that were useless because we were laughing too. He was just killing us. So it was sad to lose Paul 10 years ago now, at least. But yeah, you know what? Something like that makes you a scene like stuff like that Fred did and like Paul did in all of Chris's films, or many of them. There's something more eternal than just saying a line that somebody wrote and you nailed the line and it's in the film. It's something that came right from you. It makes it yours and it makes you it makes your work kind of live
Right.
in a lovely way. So anyway, that's me and Fred.
Fantastic.
I could tell you so much more, but I won't.
Yeah, he just always been one of my because I'm almost 50, and so that was sort of the time of things like I was watching SCTV and old SNL and things like that, and those were just
Yeah.
Fernwood Tonight. It was just such great
Man,
stuff.
he was brilliant on
Yeah,
Fernwood. Brilliant.
fantastic.
Yeah.
What is it when you're doing a movie like that, and you know you guys are just riffing, and there are a couple of scenes that just really sort of, and anyone who hasn't seen the movie really should see the movie, not just before this, but just because it's a great movie. I'm sure some of our younger readers haven't seen it, but I think it's a must. It's definitely a must see. But there are big moments, sort of like you're leading up to a big, like for example the scene where Christopher Guest is talking about the intricacies of writing the song with on the piano with Rob Reiner, and I forget like by the love pump, and it's this really build up, and it's a great punchline. But then there are those little moments, like when you guys are sitting around doing like kind of one of the first interviews with Rob Reiner, and there's just those little spikes of dialogue that maybe I don't even know, like if you're thinking at the time. Because one, for example, was when you're talking about, you're going through the list of past drummers that have been with the band, and I think it was Harry who says, Harry Shearer, who says he choked on vomit, and then somebody, I don't know if it was you or Christopher, said but it wasn't his vomit. Those are the kinds of things though that make me, I think, really laugh hard at those things. Are those things that just are those sort of like little sort of lucky strokes that happen and hit big, or are those things that you're?
No, there were a few. See, things like that. The lore of the band, the past of the band, was kind of established.
Okay.
And we knew certain gags would suggest themselves, and we let them happen.
Yeah.
More than anything else.
So even those smallest details of who was the drummer, who died this way, that way, those are all bios that you guys had to learn as the characters.
Right. But that's the first thing we did. That's the very first thing we did. We wrote the Bible of the band. You can find that a slightly altered version of that in the original album.
Mm-hmm.
The original LP had a what purports to be a page from the Rocklopedia Britannicus, one of those massive time waster volumes of rock lore with the family trees in it and everything, which is, I admit to being that kind of geek. So it was so much fun to really just riff and stuff. And when David St. Hubbins says, kind of downplaying Nigel's absence, saying, "No, look, there are 37 different people have played with this band." That's accurate,
right?
If you look at this thing and read,
wow,
oh my God, yeah. So you just take a look at that. It's kind of interesting.
I have a friend. This is Spinal Tap is one of his favorite films. Is one of his favorite films, and when he talks about it all the time. He calls David St. Hubbins Sir David St. Hubbins, because he said there's no way that David St. Hubbins hasn't been knighted by the Queen at this point. So he calls him Sir David St. Hubbins.
That's very sweet, but I don't think so. David St. Hubbins is the kind of person who would reject the honor, even though he's never been offered it.
Right.
He just has to make a political statement. I'm not a royalist, no. I don't know. And we never really thought of that.
He's but those are I'm sure those are the kind of fans that have just allowed the movie to live and breathe for so long. Just the guys who and the folks who just.
Well, you remember this film was shot in November, December of 1982.
Yeah.
So there was even a little thread about the Falklands War. Tiny little bit where I think it was just one little piece that Nigel talked about. It was kind of feeling the patriotism and talking about enlisting. The rest of us just talking about. So it was a little pop like that, but it's very much part of the film as far as we're concerned, because we were there. We did it. Yeah. So anyway, it's kind of interesting historically.
Yeah, and just kind of one more, and we'll let people sort of go and see for themselves this event. But where did the whole genesis of the movie come from? Where was that something that you guys have been talking about? Because you all knew each other, you and Christopher Guest, and you had known each other before that.
I knew Chris. I met Chris in 1967. We were both at NYU. Harry, I met in met Rob in 1969, right before I came out here. Came out here in 1970 and met Harry Shearer. And Harry and David Lander, who was my friend from college, from Carnegie. Carnegie was known as Carnegie Tech at the time.
Right.
Before the Mellon money.
Right.
But that Lenny and Squiggy really were born at Boss Hall.
Yeah.
Techies, we used to call them. I know we call them now. Mellies?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
CMT graduates or students. Yeah, Boss Hall is kind of where that all came together. And they were just based on a couple of kids that we knew individually growing up in the New York area.
Right.
So I've known these guys for a long time. In 1978, Rob had a TV special called The TV Show, which it was intended to be a possible pilot for a series. And it's just a guy with a remote just sitting there going through a day of programming. Mm-hmm. So it was a way to parody all kinds of TV. SCTV very much did the same thing when they were up and kicking. So one of the things was there was a show called Midnight Special hosted by Wolfman Jack back in the day. And so Rob played Wolfman, introducing this idiotic English band who did a live performance that then had a pre-shot piece with grotesque images and clowns and smoke machines and stuff. And that was part of the show. There was a number called Rock and Roll Nightmare. Mm-hmm. So when Rob was kind of trying to get his feature directing career going, one of the things he thought about was, why don't we do, a story of this band on the road, kind of like Last Waltz, kind of like The Song Remains the Same, kind of big rock and roll documentary with interviews and with behind the scenes stuff. So we started writing the screenplay, and then we stopped writing the screenplay after a page and a half. The second page literally fell into the wastebasket as it came. It was a typewriter. Remember those?
Yes, sure.
And went flying into and so we said, that's an omen. Let's not do this. Mm-hmm. And we had a screenplay that was due. We had to hand in a screenplay to the people who were putting up the money. And we said, why don't we do this instead? Why don't we take what they're paying us for the first draft, and instead make a demo film about the band and show them what it's like, what it's going to be like. We have numbers, we have gags, and we have all the dialogue is improvised. Mm-hmm. It's all about living in the moment and all that stuff. So that's what we did. We made a 10-minute film called Rock and Roll Nightmare, actually. And we kind of shopped that around, and eventually we found a home with Embassy Pictures. Mm-hmm. Oh, the chairman, the boss, mm-hmm. was Norman Lear, the great Norman Lear, sure. National treasure Norman Lear, who was a friend of Rob's from All in the Family days. And he said, let's take a chance on this. Small budget, let's go. Shot it in 5 weeks. This is, of course, after all the prep, right. Which was not only writing the Bible, but also putting a big map on the wall, tracking the tour, and then coming up with the gags to go different places, saying, hey, it'd be cool when they're in Chicago. Hey, if they go through this, this date gets canceled, they have to play an Air Force base, which came from John Sinclair, who was our original keyboard player, who had to go on to be part of Uriah Heep. This is where things all kind of crisscross with reality. Right. John had to go, but he said, you know what, Uriah Heep, we played a gig at this Air Force base. It was a nightmare. Boom, it's in the movie. So that's kind of what we did. A lot of things that happened in that film really happened to us on the road in various ways. Chris had been on the road, David, Harry and I had been on the road with The Credibility Gap, which was, a satirical outfit. I had been on the road with Lenny and the Squigtones in '79. So we all had nightmares on the road that we could contribute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about the event itself. As we talked about, there was the Princess Bride table read in Wisconsin, and that raised $4.2 million for Wisconsin Democrats. That's pretty amazing.
Well, it's great, and it's a movie that it's one of my favorite films. It's probably one of your favorite films. It's one of those movies that really just kind of finds its groove and just nails it. It's a beauty. I love the book so much too, and it was like, well, I at least think we got the right guy directing this. So it was, you can see why. Now, people who are tuning in looking for wigs and smoke bombs,
right.
Instead you're going to find filmmakers talking about, how this happened, how this got to be that way. But we will be showing the film and having a lot of funny guests, showing chunks of the film.
Yeah.
And hopefully your favorites, hopefully mine. So
absolutely. So as I mentioned at the top of the show, we're running a series called What's at Stake, and we're asking local stakeholders and voters, what's at stake for you in this election? Michael, in your mind, what do you think is at stake in the upcoming election?
Well, let's start with the United States Constitution.
Yeah.
Which the Republicans are treating like a serving suggestion,
right,
rather than an actual table of laws and procedures. I think that's very much at stake. I think the voices that are being stilled now are the ones that need to be the loudest.
Right.
We're just a bunch of actors, but I'm talking about people at the local levels, people at state levels and county levels. We need some firebrands on our side. They took the gloves off when Trump told them to take the gloves off. And, I'm not saying we answer brutality with brutality, because that's not the kind of person I am. But their brutality needs to be called out. Now, look, I'm talking as a lifelong Democrat.
Sure.
The lifelong Republicans I know are not Trump people, so I think they need to speak up. I think it's lovely when Mitt Romney whispers something in our ear on his way out the door.
Right.
It would have been nice for the last 3.5 years, rather than sitting down and having squab with Trump, that he would maybe have said something then. I hate to be partisan, but this is kind of, if you ask me what I think is at stake, that's what I think is at stake.
Have you always been someone who's been political? Because I was kind of doing a little math and even thinking back. I would guess you were probably one of the first elections that you, as a voter, were involved in. Was Richard Nixon, at least his first or second run for president?
Right. First time I voted for president, it was 3 weeks after my 21st birthday.
Wow.
Yeah, and I voted for Mr. Humphrey, an imperfect candidate,
right.
A man who refused to speak out against an unjust war that was happening at the time. Mm-hmm. But I held my nose and voted for Hubert. Nobody likes doing that, but sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you can be very enthusiastic. I enthusiastically voted for Barack Obama. I enthusiastically voted for Bill Clinton the second time.
Right.
I voted for him the first time too, but less enthusiastic.
Right.
I think 4 years of not being engaged in international wars was refreshing, even though Rwanda was a big no-go. That I think it was a mistake. Mm-hmm. But look, you have to do that. You have to really use your brain, find the candidates who align most closely with how you feel about things. Now, I'm being totally nonpartisan now. I think that's what you really have to do on every level. You have to vote from you. It goes into the ballot box and then it belongs to them. But before then, it's yours.
Right.
And do not deny what you know to be the truth or what you feel to be the truth. None of us are Solomon here. We're just people trying to get along in the year 2020. Find the candidates, find the propositions that speak to your views and that express your needs. Put that in the ballot and then it belongs to them. But before that, it's yours.
Yeah, and there's down ballot races and issues. There's in city of Pittsburgh, for example, there's a measure to increase the power of the Citizens Police Review Board. Those are the things that, I mean, obviously voting for president is extremely important, but these are the things that are going to affect everyday lives, and those are the things that we really need to be looking at, I think, too.
Well, also things like Citizens United, which is kind of an abomination, in my opinion. It's not on any ballot, but we have to work to elect representatives who will maybe do something about it. Maybe do something about the fact that there is unfairness and that there is bias and prejudice. And if it's not your cup of tea, vote against it.
Right.
So.
As we talked about a second ago, you were, of course, you were live during the Nixon administration. And of course, if you look at Nixon versus Trump, and I think a lot of people have kind of thought about this. What is your take in terms of, when we had a president who resigned over some chicanery during campaigning, and now we have Trump, who got away with what I would argue was worse behavior.
100 times worse.
Yeah,
easily. We keep having these little spasms of optimism.
Right.
And after Watergate, I keep going back to this. In 1987, Jules Feiffer, great cartoonist, great satirical cartoonist, had a piece, and it was kind of someone sitting in front of the TV and kind of saying, well, Watergate, then this happened, and then this, and it was in the middle of Iran-Contra. And the last panel is, I wonder how the Democrats are going to blow this one. And that's kind of like, it's those the optimism is killed by reality.
Right.
It's killed by, it was killed in the first, obviously during the Barack Obama years, it was killed continually by the Senate. The McConnell touch. It's just, he actually came out and said in the opening months of Obama's presidency, it is our goal to make him a one-term president.
Right.
And it's that kind of division I think we can do without. But and after Watergate, we thought, well, things can get better. Jimmy Carter possibly shouldn't have been president.
Right.
An amazing man, and our greatest ex-president.
Yes.
Without question. The man who really, really used whatever capital he had to make himself and to make the world, legit.
Right.
He was a breath of fresh air in 1976. He was kind of undersold, in my opinion. And I was not surprised when in 1980, when Reagan was elected, because it was essentially make America great again. Because the president said, we're in dark times. Well, the president's not supposed to say that. He's supposed to say everything is great. It's morning in America.
Yeah.
And all this. We'll never know what was in the cake box that George Bush took to Tehran. We'll never know that. All those things are dead.
Yeah.
Anyway, listen, let's not get into conspiracies. Okay?
They're fun, sometimes. It depends on who's the architect of these conspiracies.
Well, as long as we agree that conspiracy is just, it's a translation of who knows.
Right, exactly.
You don't have the negative answer, I'm going to go with my positive answer, and vice versa.
Right.
Yeah.
Michael McKean, tomorrow night, folks, you go online now. You can make a donation of any amount, and you can go online to padems.com/Spinal Tap. You can make a donation, and then you'll receive a link so you can log on tomorrow night and watch this. What I'm sure is going to be a great reunion. I'm looking forward to it. I think a lot of people are.
Michael, get there a half an hour early. You get there a half an hour early, please. So that, because we've had that last, I don't know about you, but I've had that last minute, oh God, oh, I don't have the right stuff.
Right.
So make sure if you want to join us, and we'd love for you to join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. we ran the tech side of it yesterday, and Patton Oswalt, if he had been born in the band, he would have been. He couldn't have been more perfect. We all adore him, and he's just the best. And so anyway, but he has reminded us, get there a half hour early.
Yeah, Patton Oswalt, I should say, he's moderating it as you mentioned, and he's such a great comedian. He's a good actor too. He's really done
fabulous. You ever see Big Pan?
Yes.
Oh my God, he's brilliant in that. He's a wonderful actor.
He's really
a major dude.
Yeah, Justified. He was. I don't know if you've watched Justified.
I didn't. I started a while. I'm going to have to get back to this because I really liked him. I've heard he's wonderful in it. Yeah.
He is. He really is. Michael, thank you so much for taking all the time. I really
thank you. And I apologize again for it was not a blow off. Believe me. Yesterday was stupidity. Today was plumbing.
No worries. No worries. Michael McKean, we're looking forward to the show. Thank you so much.
Same here. Yo, Pittsburgh.
Thank you. This has been the Pittsburgh Current Podcast. I'm editor-publisher Charlie Deitch. Look out for the Pittsburgh Current coming at you tomorrow. And as always, I'd like to remind you that if you support independent journalism, please, we could use your help. We could use your donation, your membership, us.commitchange.com/PA/Pittsburgh/Pittsburgh-Current. We're also going to have that address in the comments. So thank you guys so much. Michael McKean, have a great day.
Backslash is not a bad name for a band either.
That's great. This is Backslash. Yeah. That would be great. All right. Thank you, folks.